Can't get enough of Kelly and Ramya?
We're now on YouTube for you to indulge in highlights from our show.
Earlier this month, we interviewed Robert Cockcroft, director of McMaster University's William J. McCallion Planetarium, and that was to learn about all things about the celestial bear, the Six Nations Night Sky Show. Let's give this a watch.
Robert Cockcroft is an assistant professor of physics and astronomy and director of McMaster University's William J. McCallion Planetarium. I want to talk to him today about the celestial bear, but Professor, welcome to the show, and would you do me a favor and describe this fantastic shirt you've got on as we sit here chatting on the day of the eclipse?
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for that nice invite and introduction. So I'm wearing a black t-shirt that has a white circle on it, and that's showing the diamond ring effect, which is, and then the date underneath today's date, April 8th, 2024. And the diamond ring is, because the moon isn't perfectly spherical, it has mountain ranges and craters in it. There will be a moment just before totality, just before the moon completely covers the sun, when there'll be a tiny piece of the sun shining through the mountain ranges, the craters on the moon, and it creates a very bright patch on one side of the moon, and then there's a ring around the rest of the moon, and so that's why it's called the diamond ring effect, and that's the t-shirt that all our staff at the university are wearing today, who are helping out at the event at the back of campus.
That's amazing. Even the thought of that, because so many of us sit here, we just expect that, oh, it'll edge over, and a circle. I'm here, though, today to talk to you about the celestial bear. It's a tremendous, would the best way to call it a description or conversation when we think about it as its importance to increase knowledge around Indigenous astronomy? I mean, the show itself has really garnered quite a bit of popularity. So would that be the best way to sum it up? Just simply say, hey, this fantastic show, talk, enlightenment.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So at the planetarium here at McMaster, we give over 300 shows per year, and the Celestial Bear show is the most requested show. Even 9 years later, after we helped co-produce it with our Indigenous scholar collaborators, Tom Deere, David Moses, and Professor Rick Montour.
That's amazing. Like 9 years. Okay, let's go and talk a little bit about colonization and how it has impacted Indigenous astronomy knowledge out there, particularly the way it's viewed.
So colonization, when we say that word, we're usually thinking of the colonization of land.
Yes.
But in our context here at the university, we also remember very often the colonization of the sky above us, and so that can mean, for example, not only are the stories themselves stolen, the stories of the sky, but light pollution, modern day light pollution, is also stealing our connection, not just for Indigenous people, but non-Indigenous people. It's stealing the connection we have with the sky as well, because we can no longer see the stars and planets. So many people have never seen the Milky Way, for example. Our own galaxy have never seen it, just because we have so much light pollution. So that's another form of colonization, not just the land, but also the sky.
I never really think about it that way, but I understand the disconnect. Even as a child, and people talking about the sky, and always hearing people say, and of course today, well, you got to get away from the lights to enjoy this. Anytime anything's going on, oh, you've got to get out to the country to really experience it. What initiatives will this project introduce to kind of give us some more of that knowledge around astronomy?
So it's another way that the show helps people realize, for non-Indigenous people, the connection that Indigenous people have with the sky is just one example. There are many connections, but this is just one example. And it's also a nice way to think about how the sky works. Rather than trying to memorize facts, you learn a story. And many people, myself included, it's easy to remember a story rather than memorizing facts.
Yeah.
So, and you can relate the story to other people in a very nice fashion. So you can, just remembering the story, you remember how the sky works how it moves over the course of the night, how it moves if you're in different locations, how it moves if you're in different seasons of the year. All of those things, you don't have to remember the facts, you just remember the story. And it's easy to remember the story, and you're automatically remembering the things about the sky.
Do we think back especially to the importance of the sky, that roadmap that I'm sure so many Indigenous people would have counted on? And how is that reflected in the storytelling, the importance? I mean, we can sit here today, say we can predict when there's going to be an eclipse, but how does that happen in the sense of importance, more importance for that sky when there is no light pollution, when there is no compasses guiding you from, it's your life experience? How much of that is felt in the storytelling?
I'd say it's felt very, it's one of the first things that you realize, I think, that there is a tremendous connection between how, for the Six Nations, for the Celestial Bear specifically, it's a Six Nations story. And so we're thinking about how the story for Six Nations people has been important since time immemorial, but also is still relevant for today, and how it can, for example, determine the start of the hunting season. It can determine when to plant, when to harvest. It can determine when ceremonies are happening. Right, so it's all relevant things for today, still today. And so there's a misconception that, the stories are of historical importance, but they're still relevant. The misconception we help address in the planetarium is that it's still relevant today, and you can still see the stories being told in the sky today, and how they impact lives on the ground today.
It's really interesting when you think about the very beginnings of it, and when you look at the Six Nations Night Sky Planetarium show, that is just some of the ways that it influenced this show, isn't it? Is there other ways or anything else that we should touch on?
So yeah, I would say for me personally, working with Tom Deere, who was the Indigenous scholar who came to us and said, I have this idea for a show, would you be interested in working with us? And we said yes, we would love to do that, because we give shows on many different topics, whether it's historical or things that the media is picking up on, different cultural ideas, things that we're interested in our own research. So all these different topics we're used to talking about in the planetarium. And we had wanted to do an Indigenous themed show, but none of us on our team currently are Indigenous, right. And our research areas are not Indigenous themed, so we didn't feel it was appropriate that we would do that ourselves. And so when Tom said, couldn't we work together, and Tom is Mohawk, we said yes, this will be great, this will be fantastic, let's do this. And he, in working with him to produce that first show, that's what started me on my own journey, contributing towards decolonization and reconciliation, and thinking about how and it sounds stupid now when I say it, but when I struggled at first when I started, because I'm originally from the UK, so I was very ignorant about Indigenous peoples in Canada. When I first started learning about colonization here in Canada, I didn't know how to help. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize, well, my astronomy is my background is in astronomy. Mm-hmm. So that's where I help, in astronomy. And so it has spurred us working on, so we have this one planetarium show now that we worked with Tom on, which is to do with the Celestial Bear. We're working on another one right now, which we hope to launch later in the summer, which is on the Seven Dancers, which is associated with the Pleiades. We have a new Indigenous astronomy course that we offer to undergraduates, which is blending perspectives from both the Western and Eurocentric ideas and Indigenous ideas on astronomy, knowledge, ways of thinking about the sky, how we relate to the sky. And then we've also now got a portable planetarium as well as the fixed facility here on campus. And we're able to take that portable planetarium to communities, and we have taken it to many Indigenous communities so far, so that we can share stories not just on campus for people who can come to campus, but we can take the stories to them, to their home communities, and in the comfort of the home communities. Which has been fantastic. So it's spurred up, this one show has spurred a lot of interest and excitement and projects that have just flourished and continue to flourish.
Well, Professor Cockcroft, what really gets me, and I start thinking back as to not just that roadmap in the sky to get somewhere, but spreading the word from communities to communities back when that related to the things seen in the skies, the experiences such as an eclipse, hundreds of years ago, and how the indigenous communities viewed them, how they passed the word on, how they recognized those effects when it comes to farming, when it comes to existence, and it comes to the movement. So I think that is tremendous. Celestial Bear, where does the name come from?
So it's not my place to tell the story, but the story includes a great bear that was initially on the ground, and then because it's a magical bear, it has powers. It transports itself up into the sky, where it remains today, and we can still see it.
Wow!
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. The storytelling must be just tremendous, the experience, and I love the fact of traveling, especially for people who aren't able to necessarily enjoy or understand or really have taken it in. Can you think for me, in your mind, how will this project down the road, beyond astronomy, have an impact?
So I think, like we mentioned at the start of this conversation, the way that the colonization has happened, and it's stolen a lot of this material, even from indigenous peoples themselves. So while non-indigenous people can learn about this story, it's also, I have heard from indigenous audiences, it's been really powerful for them. They know the story, but they didn't necessarily know the connection with the sky. They couldn't visualize the connection with the sky, but we can show that in the planetarium. And then also the fact that we are a Western Eurocentric institution at McMaster University, and here we are showcasing indigenous knowledge with our indigenous collaborators.
And getting asked 9 years later, hey, when's that show come around again? Or can you bring it to my community? I think it's powerful. I mean, we all recognize there's been a lot more discussion, learning about indigenous communities, lifestyle, and looking at the readings of the stars, the viewpoint. It's just a wonderful, I want to say full circle, as I think of our globe and what it must mean, but what a place to close your eyes and go back to and imagine. Professor, anything else in closing?
I would just say that it's changed perspectives for many people in the audience, and it's also personally changed my perspective on the way I view the sky, for which I'm really grateful that I've had this chance to, and continue to have these chances to work with our Indigenous scholar collaborators.
Wow. Thank you for giving us time, explaining it to us. I know you got a really busy day. Robert Cockcroft, of course, an assistant professor of physics and astronomy and director of McMaster University's William J. McCallion Planetarium. We've been talking about the Celestial Bear.
Really fascinating chat, Kelly, with Professor Robert Cockcroft, and just the knowledge that they have, the energy, predicting things down to the second. I can't get over that. Fantastic.
I love the inclusiveness, Grant. He really was great. But that day, you just have to, the campus was buzzing, and what a chance to promote so many of the things they do outside of what we were all there to experience at the stadium and everywhere else with the eclipse. So a big, big thank you to them, to everyone on at the school. McMaster really rolled it out, did it well for a very special day. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
You can catch Kelly and Ramya weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on AMI.